I can't explain right now how much I am enjoying this new Solar Titan build. I mean, Sunshot alone is one thing, but combining it with this Solar Titan build just takes it to the next level. Now we're going to be getting a ton of benefits with this build, from having infinite radiant effects, having restoration, on-demand healing, infinite hammers, assuming you're not terrible and you don't miss like me, and you're also going to cause solar ignitions everywhere, like there's no tomorrow. And the best part about this build is that with this season's artifact perks, and the brand new Titan Exotic, well, we're really going to become a true sun god. We're going to chain between our hammer and our solar weapons to rapidly increase our DPS, and since Radiant is also acting as a buff, we'll be able to make stackable DPS buffs on not just our abilities, but our weapons too. Because this season, we have the monochromatic perk, which allows us to have that constant damage buff, as long as we're using the opposite things. So use a hammer, use your weapons, use a hammer, and so on. And since we have infinite hammers, this ain't going to be a problem for us. But the other thing, our super, we're turning this bad boy, the Burning Maul, into sort of like a Hunter's Celestial Golden Gun, one shot, one kill. And with a few little tricks, you can make this super stupidly lethal to the point that it melts bosses. But since I don't cover game breaking bugs on builds, this build shouldn't get affected by any nerfs, changes, or things getting disabled by Bungie because of how strong it can be. And besides, this build is made to be used in content like Legend of Master Lost sectors, where your loadout is locked. So you wouldn't want to be swapping to those Synthoceps to get that insta-kill. We'll be getting a bunch of other good benefits with this build anyway. Now guys, if you find this one useful, then a rating is much appreciated, and be sure to check out the new Season 22 build playlist down below. Otherwise stay tuned, because in about 10 seconds, things are going to get spicy. Looking for cheap games? Check out Instant Gaming. With up to 90% off, you'll be able to fall in love with your next favourite dream game. Go check them out, link below. Now Titans have always had a pretty good build when it comes to using the solar subclass, simply because restoration is good, but hammers that can melt adds and give you restoration, and give you that hammer back, is what makes this build even more lethal. Now there's two exotics you'll want to use for this build. Those are the new arms, the Pyrogale Gauntlets, and Synthoceps. Today we're going to be using the new ones because although Synthoceps are good and probably a better option, the new exotic is pretty fun to use, and it's just something a little different for a change, so that we can make use of that Burning Maul super that nobody ever uses. So now it's finally going to get some use. But the one downside to not using Synthoceps is that in endgame content, getting final blows with your hammer is going to be a little harder to achieve, and it can also be annoying sometimes. But we'll make up for some of that lost hammer DPS by using one of the new seasonal artifact perks anyway. So it's not a huge problem for this build, but this build is way more fun to use in easier content where things are a little more relaxed, because then you can focus on actually enjoying the build rather than sweating it out trying to not die running after a hammer that you probably failed to throw like I do a lot. Either way, this setup we have, this build is going to cause some serious damage. Now we're using the Sunshot Exotic Hand Cannon, great hand cannon, and hand cannons did get buffed, so they do feel so much better to use in endgame content now, which is good. But with Sunshot, the weapon fires explosive rounds and highlights targets that take damage from Sunshot, but with its other perk, the Sun Blast, targets killed by Sunshot explode into solar energy, so it really pairs well with our solar build. But if you'd rather not use Sunshot, then any other solar weapon with good perks are great. I like the fixed odds machine gun, mostly for the incandescent, and the reason you want this kind of perk on a weapon when using this build is because this will scorch enemies, and this actually has a unique interaction with our subclass aspect, so that we can create sunspots, which are going to give us that restoration. So it is a pretty powerful combination to have. But anyway, run whatever solar weapon you like to use, as we'll be using them to spawn solar orbs, which I'll get to in a bit. So the way you'll use this build and the way it works is you'll use your solar weapons to get a damage boost for your abilities, then you'll use your hammer to get radiant, and also another damage boost to your solar weapons. So you're basically chaining between those damage cycles every 5 or so seconds. You'll be spawning solar orbs on solar kills that you can throw to scorch enemies again, which is pretty cool. But while all this is going on, you're going to be passively boosting up your abilities damage with roaring flames, and spawn sunspots, which are going to give you restoration. So in most cases, it's pretty much infinite radiant and a damage boost for both your abilities and weapons, infinite restoration, faster supers and spawning orbs because of the melee kills, and you're also going to be spawning those solar orbs that you can throw and pick up for ability energy. And after all that, you're then going to have one huge powerful slam with your Burning Maul that you can use to melt bosses. And say for example you were to miss with a throwing hammer when you are using this build, because I do lose it a lot, or any ability that you just used for that matter, just picking up those solar orbs is going to give you about a third of that ability energy straight back that you need the most most. Now in endgame content like a GM for example, or even any master activity whilst underpowered, this build is going to be harder to use because the melee just isn't strong enough to deal with those adds, which is why you'd probably be best running the Synthoceps for this build instead of the new arms for the super. But there are better builds out there for certain activities, so every build is good for something and not so good for something else. But this one is amazing in my opinion, and it's really fun to use. Now in terms of the setup for the subclass, you are going to want to run the Burning Maul super since this is what the build is focused around, but if you are using the Synthoceps then you can just run the hammers instead. Barricade I'm using is the rally one, just for a shorter cooldown. The throwing hammers, you definitely want this one on, and then a healing grenade. Aspects we have are Soul Invictus, so that solo ability final blows and defeating scorched targets create sunspots, and while passing through that sunspot will get restoration, and abilities will also recharge faster. And remember how running a weapon with the incandescent perk scorches enemies, so this on its own will spawn those sunspots, which is really good, especially in master content, so you don't have to rely on using your hammer to get them. The second aspect we have though is Roaring Flames. Final blows with solo abilities or ignition increases the damage of abilities. Just good to have for our hammer in harder content, and I know you can use the concentration since that works well with the exotic too, but I generally prefer to throw hammers rather than use the full ability. But speaking of that exotic, we are using the new ones, and what this does is modify Burning Maul into a single high damage slam and spawns a bunch of flames. Pretty cool, but like I said, you can use the Synthoceps if you'd rather use that and focus on the hammers more, but I'll cover that build another time anyway, updated for this season if you do want to use the standard classic Titan Solar Bonk build. Now moving on, we do have a bunch of fragments helping us out. So we have the Ember of Imperium, so that solar weapon or ability final blows extend restoration and radiant. You definitely want this one on. Ember of Solace, so that radiant and restorations last longer. Ember of Combustion, so final blows with your solar super causes targets to ignite and creates a fire sprite. Fire sprites generate grenade energy. And then Ember of Torches, so powered melee attacks, that being our hammer, will make us and allies radiant, which is a 25% damage buff. Now as I said, this pairs well with this season's artifact perks because we're going to use solar weapons anyway, right? At least you're going to want to be using them. So using this season's perk, the monochromatic, dealing elemental ability damage increases matching weapon damage and also the opposite. So a 10% stackable damage bonus for 5 seconds. So just throw a hammer at adds and get that 10% plus the 25% damage to your solar weapons from the radiant. And then when you're killing stuff with solar weapons, you're then going to get that 10% damage stacking with Roaring Flames for your abilities instead. So it's just a great loop on its own. And you can even use the Overload machine gun too, so you'll have that extra damage on champions, because not only that, our next perk, Elemental Fury, while stunned, champions take bonus damage from your abilities, so that's even more damage. This with Synthoceps and a maxed out Roaring Flames hammer would probably be pretty lethal. I'm going to try that out later myself. But moving on, you want refreshing pickups, so that picking up elemental orbs grants energy to your least powered ability. Just a great addition to the build. And then elemental orbs solar, you're going to need this one on so that you can actually generate those solar orbs to begin with when getting solar kills while on a solar subclass. And that's basically the main reason why you want to run solar weapons. Now for mods, in the helmet you want 2 hands on for bonus super energy on melee kills. This will get your super a lot faster than normal. In the arms you want a heavy handed so you can spawn the orbs of power, very important. And then 2 impact inductions to get the healing grenade quicker. For the chest I'm using a bunch of damage resist mods. Legs I have my solar scavenger mod, discounted from the seasonal artifact perk from this season, as well as some cooldown mods. And then lastly for the class, I have 2 bomber mods and a distribution for more cooldowns. Other than that, you just want the 100 resilience for the 30% damage reduction in PvE, and then ideally 100 discipline for the faster healing grenades. And honestly, this build setup the way it is, you're gonna wreck in all types of PvE content. Now the last thing here is the artifact, so this is my full setup if you want to copy it, as it doesn't copy with dim links. And then this here is the mod screen setup. An amazing build to use this season, and I strongly recommend you guys set this build up because you're going to have so much fun with it. But if this ain't the build you're looking for, then why not check out some of my other builds in the playlist down below, because you never know, you might just find the dream build of your life. But guys, thank you for tuning in, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next build video because Warlocks, you're next. Peace out guys.